Hello and welcome to our episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today we are at Financial Crime 360 at Old Billingsgate in London, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Iain Armstrong from ComplyAdvantage. Iain, how are you?
Toby, really well. Thanks for having me on this.
Not at all. Listen, great to have you, and massive venue.
Yeah.
Lots of great conversations we had all the way through today. And as you've just highlighted to me, you're on twice, so you must be doing something right.
Yeah. So good they've brought me on twice. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully I get to see a few of the panels because as you said, there are some really, really excellent ones going on throughout the day. But me personally, I'm going to be speaking on two. So I'm moderating the first one, that's at 1 p.m. And it's probably the one I'm most looking forward to. It's all about scams, but we've gone for a deliberately provocative title, which is
So that'd be clickbait.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's, how could you be so stupid? And the reason we've chosen that title is because often that's what victims hear. That's the language that victims of fraud hear at some point after they become victim. But we're actually turning that question back on the financial institutions, on law enforcement, on the technology companies, and saying, how could you be so stupid as to allow these things to happen on your watch?
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a really excellent set of panelists on that one. I'm moderating that, so I think I'll have my work cut out for me on that one.
Make sure you bring everyone into the conversation. It's one of those things where everyone will want to speak about it as well. So if you're sat there and you've obviously done a little pre-moderation beforehand.
Yes.
If you're sat there and you're thinking, right, these are 3 or 4 of the main takeaways, or 2 or 3 of the main takeaways you want people to be leaving that conversation thinking about bringing back into their business, what would they look like?
Right, well, we're really looking a lot at the issue of vulnerability. So people can be vulnerable at different times in their life, and so you can fall victim just because you happen to be going through something, maybe a bereavement or something like that. And what we're really tasking the audience, who, as you know, are largely financial institutions, payments institutions, we're really challenging them to look at the processes they have for recognizing whether their customer might be in a vulnerable circumstances, and to do a better job of managing that, of spotting it and putting the guardrails in place that can protect their own customers from falling victims to scams. So I think one of the big takeaways around that is just reminding the audience that vulnerability can strike all of us at any time. It's not a sort of trait that you either have or don't have. You can become vulnerable on a temporary basis, and then you will be more susceptible to falling victim to scams.
I think that's one of the main things, isn't it? That people, as you say, how can you be so stupid? That sort of victim shaming that you almost have around there.
That's exactly.
And actually, how we can then put the guardrails in to make that a little bit more, of a shared responsibility. And I think that's something which is really good to see all the way through this room today. About how many people are thinking about how we can improve that. And that's something that you obviously have been doing a lot in the day job with ComplyAdvantage as well, right?
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, we're heavily invested in the anti-fraud space. We've been working extremely hard for the last 2 years on building our new platform, Mesh, which hopefully, if you've spent any time on LinkedIn, you'll have seen at least one of our employees posting about it, because pretty much everyone is at the moment.
It's good work.
No, we're really pushing that out there at the moment because we're very proud of it as a result of a lot of hard work, and there are components of that platform which are specifically dedicated to fraud detection, and both on the perpetrator side and on the victim side. This is what a lot of providers don't always think about, is they're very focused, rightly so, on spotting potential fraudsters, so people committing fraud, but that same technology can be applied to identifying victims, people who are falling victim, which is equally useful for society, really.
Absolutely. So that panel, not to be missed. A little bit later on, you're back on again, talking about the global sanctions report.
That's right, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's, I'm joining a really, really well-credentialed group of people, so I've got to be at the very top of my game.
I'm sure you will be. I'm sure they'll have to be.
Yes, well, thank you. It's very kind of you to say. But sanctions is one of those subjects that it's incredibly complex. It changes all the time. You know, a new administration comes in, particularly the one we're seeing in America.
Yeah,
they have their own ideas about how to encourage behavioral change in other countries. So previous American presidents have been very focused on sanctions. The current one, as we know, is a bit more focused on tariffs and things like that. And that has a knock-on effect, and that's really what we're going to be focusing on in that panel. Is not the US specifically, but divergences between the American approach, the British approach, and the European approach, and what that means for those people who were, like me in my former life, working as a compliance professional in a bank, what that actually means for those people sitting there trying to navigate three quite different structures and approaches to sanctions. Whereas, let's say you're a bank that has a presence in the UK, in Europe, and in America, and you actually have to keep all three of those administrations happy.
Yeah.
So it's extremely complicated. But
I think that's sort of a really underestimated part of this, isn't it? Just about how different, you know, a global scale is. And how people don't necessarily think of things or think much more locally than potentially they should do. So to look at it from there, I think it's probably a really interesting thing to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know there are many of our clients here. There are many international businesses in this room right now. Walking around. So the more international you are, the more complex sanctions navigation is.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what you're going to be talking about. Let's shift the focus a little bit to ComplyAdvantage. You spoke a little bit about the things that you guys are talking about a little at the moment, and a lot of excitement about the new platform.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, very much. So we call it Mesh, our new platform. We have re-engineered compliance for the age of artificial intelligence. And what that means broadly, if I extract all the marketing speak from it, is we've, for the first time out of, we believe, any vendor, we've unified the analysis of transactional activity, the analysis of customer data, so name screening, customer due diligence. We put all of that in one place, and we have basically drawn out the benefits that you have from having all of those things in one place. So your transactions, or a customer's transactions, can tell you something about who that customer is. And who that customer is can tell you something about what you would expect to see in their transactional activity. So it sounds almost trivial, the idea of putting those in one place, but we've already seen in some of the early testing that we've done that the benefits in terms of A, being able to more effectively spot potential criminal activity, and B, probably more importantly for a lot of financial institutions, suppressing meaningless noise. At both of those things, you improve at both of those things basically when you have everything in one place. And the meaningless noise aspect, as I say, it's almost our North Star as a company. Many of us have worked in financial institutions. We know that people in financial crime analyst roles spend a huge amount of their day just closing down alerts that are false positives. So they're meaningless alerts that should never have been raised in the first place. And part of the reason for that is a lot of institutions are working with siloed data. So they've got customer data over here, transaction over here, maybe some other data over here. And a lot of the technology providers in this space are also providing point solutions. So they're all also siloed solutions. And so you're missing a trick in terms of when you see the whole picture, you're just much less likely to generate alerts on some of the things that you would in the old world, because you can see maybe 5 or 6 data points that allows you to say, oh, this activity actually isn't suspicious, because we have access to more visibility of what the customer's doing. So that's it in a nutshell.
And I think that one of the, you touched on it here, but I think one of the words or letters, more to the point, a couple of the letters that have been on every event and every sort of a conversation pretty much I've had this year have been around AI and its power around that. And that's something you've really been winding into this as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very large data science function. So these are the software engineers that really specialize in machine learning and AI.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's fair to say there is some sort of fluff out there in the industry. There are people who are sort of slapping an AI label on things, where when you lift up the bonnet, you know, truth be told, it probably isn't really artificial intelligence or machine learning. We're very conscious that we don't want to be part of that pack. We want to have really demonstrable results tied back to the application of these technologies. But also we're very sensitive to the fact that financial institutions have to be cleaner than clean. You know, they have regulators scrutinizing them very closely. So any way that they apply technology like this has to be explainable. So in other words, you don't want a black box technology that is sort of churning out results or alerts, and you can't really explain why it's doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, like many of us use these AIs like ChatGPT and Claude and things like that. They're brilliant. Problem is they're not very practical for use in financial services because you can't really explain why it said a particular thing.
Exactly right, and it can't be approximately right as well and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So our application of artificial intelligence has been designed really from the ground up to be fully explainable and auditable. So any decision or alert or output generated by our system, our users can trace back exactly how and why it came up with that, which I think when you're operating in heavily regulated industries like financial services is really critically important.
Absolutely. So that we're filming today on November the 3rd. It's hurtling towards the end of 25. This will probably be out either at the end of this year or at the start of next. So if we're looking forward to 2026 and taking a whole view of financial crime in the year ahead, we've seen massive evolution in terms of, you know, AI has not only accelerated a lot of good, it's also, you know, accelerated a lot of bad at the same sort of time. How people are able to be sophisticated with it. I was with someone on the train this morning who was sort of, you know, just talking about the futilities almost of how difficult it is to combat this. He works for a bank. It's almost like, you know, you'll catch the mid-tier guys, but this is, you know, there's a view of that. I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic. I always know he's very negative about everything on that side. But I'm just really interested to see where you feel 2026 is going to head and what some of the key things that people need to be thinking about will be.
Yeah, well, I think I can certainly sympathise with the person you spoke to. You do come across this attitude throughout your career. I've been in financial crime and financial services for getting on for 25 years at this point, and you will periodically think this, because criminals have these advantages, right? They don't need to get approval from a committee to do what they're doing. They can just test stuff out, and if it works, they can run with it.
I love the idea of a criminal committee.
Exactly. Well, you know, this is the thing, they're very light governance when you're a criminal, right? You don't have to get many approvals for anything. You just try stuff, and if it works, you run with it. Whereas obviously the rest of us, we do have to be well governed, and we do have to be really considerate about how we make decisions. So you're absolutely right that AI-enabled financial crime has exploded. I think I saw one stat that said the use of AI by criminals had gone up 900% or almost 900% in the last 2 years. So there's no point in denying it. It is clearly a thing that is happening. But rather than feel defeatist about it, this is why I think companies like ComplyAdvantage are so important as being part of the solution to the problem, because we're saying, you know, let's use these technologies in a smart way that can basically neutralize the threat of the way criminals are using them. And so you're always going to be, in a sense, one step behind criminals, because they will move on and adapt and change. We'll expect in 2026 that's going to continue to happen. So as soon as we close one gap, they will exploit a new one. That's simply the nature of financial crime, unfortunately. But compliance, used correctly and making appropriate use of technologies can genuinely be enough to frustrate criminals, because sometimes it's enough to accept that you're not necessarily going to completely stop them outright, but you will force them to try new avenues. And often it's in forcing them to go down new avenues that they get caught, because they make mistakes when they're in that state of, oh, we've been doing this for a year or so, but now that gap's been closed, let's try something else. It's quite often in those moments when they're pivoting that they're more susceptible to being caught because they get sloppy.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope 2026 sees some instances like that. I mean, we have had some great wins over the last year in terms of thwarting criminal activity. I think everyone is keeping half an eye on the US in terms of what they do. I mean, we've had a recent joint UK-US effort around the drug trafficking trade, the joint UK-US sanctions effort around drug trafficking. So I expect we'll see more initiatives like that. The US is very, very focused on drug trafficking because fentanyl is such a problem there. And they want to look to other countries around the world to help support them in fighting that activity. So yeah, we'll see that. And I would always say, in our current climate, expect the unexpected.
I think that's definitely a safe thing to say.
Yeah.
I love the whole crystal ball thing that comes up at this time of year and just seeing where people are heading. But realistically, I think that if you're saying expect the unexpected, there could not be a better way for heading in. Ian Armstrong, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks so
I'm
much.
really looking forward to. I hope I get to listen to some of your conversations later on. Sounds like they're going to be great conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it.
Lovely to have you on the show. Thank you very much,
Thanks a lot,
Dave.
Toby.
And if people at home want to get in touch and find out a little bit more, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So please do follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to receive emails there. And if you go to ComplyAdvantage.com, we can raise a query and we'll do a demonstration for you as well.
Good man. Ian, great.
You.
Good luck with everything later on. And thank you all
you.
for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.